Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Burlington Matters. I'm your host, Burlington Mayor Marianne Mead Ward, and I'm delighted to welcome my two guests today. We are going to talk about food and where you can get food and folks in our community who struggle to get food, otherwise known as food insecurity. For such a rich community like Burlington, it's hard to imagine that there are people who struggle, but they do. And the great news is that we have folks that have stepped up and organizations to help with that. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome my two panelists. We have Christina Mulder here today, who is the Director of Programs and Partnerships for Open Doors at St. Christopher's Church on Guelph Line. And I love that title, Programs and Partnerships. I'm sure there's a story there that you can tell us about. And of course, Robin Bailey, who is the Executive Director of the Burlington Food Bank. So I want to come to you first, Christina, to tell us a little bit about the journey that St. Christopher's has been on with Open Doors. When did it start? What does it do? Go ahead.
Well, thank you for having me. So Open Doors essentially began in and around 2000, 2001. It's the outreach mission of St. Christopher's Anglican Church. And its humble beginnings were really just the community itself, the parish and parishioners itself coming together to have like a Tuesday dinner together. They would cook and enjoy the dinner, and people would come by the church and seeing the activity, and they started welcoming people in to share the meal with them. It also has its beginnings in the clothing store. Even all the food that we do, the clothing store was this Sunday event where Gloria, who still runs the program now, would pull out these bins of clothing and they would share amongst themselves. So the programming actually started very humbly and very naturally and organically here. It has grown substantially to the point where we serve about 1,200 unique individuals a month. And we do a community meal, we have a clothing store, a community market, a garden in the growing season. And the title comes from the way that we run Open Doors. And it's really through partnering with agencies like the Burlington Food Bank in the community to make sure that we are being as impactful, efficient as possible, and effective with our community members.
Thanks for that, Christina. And I remember having some meals on that Tuesday night back in the day with my kids, lasagna and Caesar salad at the time, which was really, really good. But what I love about what you've talked about is that this is really grassroots. It's come up from the community, seeing the needs of people right around them and saying we want to do something and stepping up. And then you've come along to make it, much more able to serve 1,200 people. That's 300 a week. That is truly incredible and sad at the same time that is a necessary thing in our community, that people are still struggling and need that level of support. But thank goodness that you're there. So I want to come to you now, Robin, and talk to you a little bit about this notion of need in our community and what you've seen through the pandemic. Have you seen an increase in numbers of people using food banks and an increase in what we call food insecurity? And maybe explain to our folks who are watching out there what that means.
Sure. I'll start with the last question first and just say that food insecurity is that idea that families aren't able to take care of their food if they're taking care of all of the rest of their bills. So whether it be their rent, their utilities, transportation, all of those types of things, sometimes food is the last thing that they that's the thing that's not going to be repossessed, right? So if you don't pay your rent, you can eventually get evicted. If you don't pay your electricity, they can cut it off. If you don't pay for your vehicle, you can't get to work. And so oftentimes food is the thing that sort of gets pushed to the side. So people will eat less, they'll eat less healthy, and thus oftentimes they'll get ill because they aren't eating healthy and aren't able to take care of themselves. And so it's really important that we sort of tackle that piece for people, allow them a place where they can get good, healthy, nutritious food. And thankfully, we have places like Open Doors ourselves and several other agencies here in Burlington that just do a really, really great job of trying to support people that are feeling food insecurity on a daily basis. As far as the pandemic goes, yeah, we definitely saw a really significant increase in the first month or two right away. And I think that was just, there were shelves empty at grocery stores and people were getting really nervous. And so we saw a really significant, and then last summer, we actually saw a bit of a drop, which came as a bit of a surprise to us. And then from then on, though, from about September or October of 2020, right through till now, we have seen an increase again. And even through this past summer, which is something that I've been in this sort of sector of helping people with food through the Salvation Army and now at the Burlington Food Bank for about 11 or 12 years. And I've never seen a summer where there wasn't a bit of a drop off in terms of the number of people that were needing our assistance until this past summer. And so that's a pretty serious sort of canary in the coal mine, I guess, that we need to be aware that there's a lot more people who are in need, who have gone through all of their savings, have gone to their neighbors and their friends and asked for the help that they could get, and they can't get it anymore. Credit cards maxed out or whatever it might be, and now they're struggling. And so we're really thankful for an incredible community that allows us to help that increase in numbers. And we think that sadly, it's going to probably continue for the next year or two.
Thanks for that. I want to give you a chance to comment on that as well, Christina. What have you seen through the pandemic in terms of change in numbers and what's happening now as we slowly start to move out of lockdown in many ways and starting to return to some of those activities that we've been without for so long?
So I think the one thing that concerns us the most about what we've seen when we evaluate the last 20 months is that we actually saw an increase in new faces, which I mean is wonderful, because Open Doors is all about being a welcoming and safe place to make that first reach out for help. But at the same time, we saw a decrease in our regulars who perhaps may be a little bit more precariously housed, have transportation barriers, and the new model just didn't fit with their needs. And when they would come to Open Doors, they were seeking more than just food. They were seeking that partnership programming complement that we offered, that warm, seated indoor area. So now that things are opening back up, we have this new community that will be meeting a historically set community that will be coming back, and our ability to handle those capacities, we're really not sure how we're going to do that. And from a physical standpoint, the logistics will have to be worked out. How many people can we serve at what time, and how do we shift? Do we make reservations for dinner? Like things like that. But the more serious point is actually, how are we going to financially support? Because we've been steady at, say, 250 meals a week, where as things open up and our friends feel safer to come back, and there are more opportunity for them to come than just pick up a meal, like actually stay for some community, that will increase to about $350. So how do we handle that? So that's probably our biggest observation of the pandemic, that maybe people outside of agencies and support work like this don't know.
I think you've touched on a really important point, that people don't just come for the food. They come for friendship and relationship. And as you said, they come for community. And that's the one thing that has really taken a hammering through the pandemic, because we've had to stay separate from each other to keep ourselves physically healthy. But we know that prolonged separation from other humans and people in our community and our neighborhood is not mentally or emotionally healthy for us.
Right.
And so that's a whole, once you feed people, you still need to nourish their souls and their emotions and their hearts. And that's the next pandemic that's been growing throughout this whole period of time. I want to come back to you, and you, either one of you can feel free to speak about that because you would know more. You see it on the front lines. But I also wanted to give you a chance, Robin, to talk about some of the things that have been happening over the past really 2 years in this food bank sector in your own organization. And you know, you're on a board now, and there's been a lot of collaboration that's been happening through the pandemic, which has been great to see among the different providers here in Burlington, but even more broadly in the Ontario food bank world. So talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so here in Burlington, we can really see a much better collaborative sort of work together. Not that we were opposing each other, we just were really busy doing what we were doing and weren't really connecting the way that we could. And over the last year and a half or so, we've really tried to, I think each individual organization has tried to figure out ways that we can work better with each other. And Open Doors and ourselves have been working together for quite a long time. And in the last couple of years, just Christina and her team over at Open Doors have been a tremendous support to us at the food bank. They actually had to close for a little bit because of the early parts of the pandemic, and they right away called us and said, "Can we help you guys?" And we were like, absolutely. And so we've always had a really strong relationship, Christina and myself, the time that we've known each other. And so it was a very easy one for us to do, but we've seen it happen with other organizations as well. All of us sort of coming together and figuring out ways that we can support each other, whether it be us getting some of our food from Feed Ontario and supplying it to Wellington Square's meal program, or Open Doors helping to make meals when they couldn't have people in. They were making meals for Wellington Square, right? And we really saw a great collaborative effort in terms of supporting each other. And then, yeah, my work with Feed Ontario has been just really, really beneficial to me to understand new ways of being able to serve in our community and how we can be one of those connecting pieces. We have 5 agencies that are all working together really well in Burlington. A lot of that is learning from Feed Ontario, who are obviously the association that represents the whole province and tries to connect food banks from Daily Bread Food Bank in Toronto to the Ottawa Food Bank to the Windsor Help Center, just right across the province, and even starting to get into Northern Ontario now, and realizing that we're all in this together and trying to support one another as best that we can.
Yeah, the partnerships is really the key to any good thing, right? And I remember very early in this pandemic when we collectively set up the COVID-19 task force, which you're a member of, and I chair. What food insecurity was one of the first things that we identified. How are people, you know, when the stores are closed or when people are isolated, how are they going to get fed? And one of the first things that came out of that collective effort of that group was the flyer, so people could see all the different organizations in the city that were there to help, and easy access to that information about where different food programs were happening, where they could get clothing. And we still do that. We update that, I think, every month or so. Wellington Square United Church, for sure, their meal bag program has been a part of that. And the two of you and other organizations in the city have all contributed to that. So it's been great to see that partnership. And just coming back to you, Christina, in terms of that whole partnership theme, how are you funded? Where do you get your supports to continue the programs that you offer for the community?
So the majority of the funding that we receive is through granting. So through direct asks to the Ontario government, to the region, and to local foundations. I would have to say that the pandemic has caused us to lose quite a bit of in-person funding. So that personal and private donation, people walk up, see what we're doing quite substantially. So we're right now in a resilience/recovery effort to come up with a strategic plan to kind of get that funding back. It just helps us to be a little bit more sustainable in what we do. As you know, a lot of grantors, as I mentioned, will expect kind of new initiatives. And right now we're still kind of in a little bit of a holding pattern to do what we do and just do it well, to make sure that we're supporting the community instead of trying to reinvent new programs right now. So that's kind of where we're at.
Well, and clearly such a need. I mean, you're filling that need and doing it really well. And if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? So, but that is a challenge. It's an interesting point that some of the criteria for grants want the new, different program, and it can be a challenge. I want to ask you the same question, Robin, because I'm sure not everyone out there knows how the food bank is funded, how you get your donations, and the partnerships that you have to keep going. Tell us a little bit about that.
For sure. Yeah, we're totally privately funded, so it's all just individual donors. We just rely on the community to help take care of us, and they do an amazing job. Especially some of the local corporations really stepped up over the last year and a half, just letting us know that they're there for us. Organizations that some we didn't even know existed, and they were making substantial donations to help us. And when we were first starting with the pandemic and Open Doors had stepped in, we saw our spending increase quite a bit. And whenever we've let the community know that, and that spending was on great, healthy, nutritious, fresh produce, Open Doors really upped the ante, and now we've had to hold on to that because our clients just appreciate it so much. And so whenever we let the public know that, they've really stepped up for us and helped us out. I think a lot of people think that we get government funding. We receive no government funding unless we ask for it through grants. And then it has to be a well-written grant for us to even get that money. And I think that's the struggle that Christina was talking about is there are so many people that are writing grant applications, and some of them are very good at writing grant applications. And some of us that are kind of in the trenches, it's the last thing we want to do. And so maybe we aren't able to provide the writing that we need to get those grants. So we've been very, very fortunate to have such an incredible community supporting us. And some of the initiatives that were nationwide really helped us out, as well as some of the provincial initiatives. And we get some of our funding because we're a Feed Ontario member from corporations such as Loblaws, Walmart, Giant Tiger, and a number of other organizations that have agreements with Feed Ontario or Food Banks Canada, and we get a portion of those proceeds.
That's terrific to see that happening, but it raises a really good point that, you know, a lot of the organizations almost have to have a full-time expert on grant writing and grant applications. And as you said, people want to be involved in these in organizations like yours to do good and to actually make the difference. And you know, it's hard to set that aside to put pen to paper for a grant program, but that's what, you know, in some cases keeps you going. So I totally understand the challenge. Are you the grant writer for Open Doors, Christina, or do you have somebody to help you with that?
I have a lot of help. I have a lot of help with that. I do want to say though that we are also funded by donations from the community, in-kind donations, and other agencies do support us with donations of food, like Food for Life, and help us. So not all donations are monetary that allow us to do what we do.
That's great. So how can, just picking up on that, I'll start with you and also ask Robin, as we head into the holiday season and the gift, you know, the giving season where we, all of us look to see how we can help all those around us. How can the community help you most deeply as we head into that season? What would you ask? This is your chance to put in a plug. This is your, well, it's not your only chance. We can talk, we could talk as long as you like about it, but yeah, what would be helpful to you? And if someone's watching this at home and says, I really want to help, and so what can I do? What would you tell them?
Yeah, so we run a Christmas Families program that helps support children during this season. So donations of things that we're looking for right now would be hygiene packs for teens, gift cards for teens so that they can make choices themselves. You can email us at enroll@stcb.ca if you wanted to sponsor a family, and we would give you details on how you could do that. donations of grocery gift cards, so that, again, that added piece of dignity so that people during this time can have choice to fill in some gaps that perhaps our community market or the Burlington Food Bank can't quite get to. And then we hope to be, well, not hope, we will be throwing a Christmas celebration on December 21st that we invite people out to participate in. We do a bit of a fancier dinner, have hot chocolate and music, and there might be a surprise guest with a big white beard that night, with some added gifts too. So if you'd like to contribute, emailing us at enroll@stcb.ca would be the way to do it.
That's terrific. Thank you. Same question for you, Robin. People watching from home that want to help, what is the most effective way they can help you as you head into the Christmas and holiday season?
Yeah, so really the best ways to support us are either with food or with dollars. The best for food is to actually go to our website and look at our most needed items. We update it pretty regularly, and you can see which items we're really in need of at the food bank. When you're out shopping and dropping something in the local grocery stores, almost every one of the local grocery stores has a collection bin, either for ourselves or for the Salvation Army. Either one is great. We work really well with each other, and if we need soup and they have soup, they give us soup. So we're able to use that. And then also, as far as financial giving, you can either obviously send checks, which we still get lots of those, but also a lot of people like to do online giving, and that's again through our website, just burlingtonfoodbank.ca. And really one of the other biggest, probably the biggest way that you can help us is become an advocate for food insecurity here in Burlington, and let others know that there are people struggling, that though it looks like everything is a really great city, which it is, there are some people that struggle day to day to put food on their table, and that there's a lot of agencies that are here to support those people, and that if you support us, you're really helping them individually. And that's one of the things that we miss about not being open normally is letting those people know that it's a community behind them that's supporting them. We get thanked, but we always make sure that we let them know that it's the city of Burlington that's doing it in terms of that assistance that we're giving out to them.
That's great. And thanks for those resources. I know that'll be really helpful for the community. As we have our last couple of minutes here together, Christina, any final words that you'd like to share, any initiatives coming up, anything you'd like to share with the community as we close out another pandemic year, start looking forward to much happier and brighter times. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'd definitely like to take the opportunity. Thank you very much for hosting us this today. But I'd like to take the opportunity that right now our big initiative is actually collecting coats and boots. So we do a lot of food work, but we also have a free clothing store. So we would really appreciate people's gently used donations of the coats and boots, and they can be brought to the church on Wednesdays and Thursdays between 9:30 and 4 p.m.
And the address of the church, just for folks watching
yes.
there. Well, I know where it is, Guelph Line, but
doesn't everybody?
Yeah.
662 Guelph Line. It's the St. Christopher's Church.
That's great, thanks. And Robin, same question for you. Any final thoughts from you as we head into the end of this year and turn a page for a brighter next year?
Yeah, I guess the big one that's going on for us starting soon, and it's actually for 6 beneficiaries in total, is the gift of giving back. The hockey players are out in full force. The Cudas and the Eagles are out there trying to collect for us, and so that's a huge help. And to back up with what Christina's saying as far as their coats and boots, if you can't get to them, feel free to drop it off in one of the local fire halls, and we'll make sure we get it to them. We collect from the local fire halls on a regular basis, and they've been tremendous to us. Burlington Fire have always been a great supporter of the food bank, and so we're happy to be able to pass that on to Open Doors.
And just in terms of how the gift to giving back, I know that you mentioned the hockey players. It's kids helping kids, the first and only of its kind, and has actually spawned some copycats across the nation. If somebody wants to participate in that, do they wait till they get the blue bag on their doorstep from one of those young folks, or how else can they participate?
I'd probably hopefully they get a young player showing up at their door. If not, you can always go to their website and you can see the dates that they're actually open at the Burlington Center, and they can drop into the Burlington Center to make their donation. I think it's only Thursdays to Sundays that you can make those donations. That's when it'll be somebody will be at the storefront, but that's the other way that they can make donations, or they can also do it online there.
That's great. Well, thank you so much, both of you, for your time today. I was joined by Christina Mulder, the Director of Programs and Partnerships at Open Doors at St. Christopher's on Guelph Line, and of course, Robin Bailey, the Executive Director of the Burlington Food Bank, talking about all the ways that you and the community, who are so generous, and we know you are, and we thank you for that, can help other residents in our city so everyone feels included and everyone is looked after. So thanks for joining us. Thanks for the information that you've provided today. And I'm Marianne Mead Ward, closing out another edition of Burlington Matters. Have a great rest of your day, everyone.